Howdy. I'm pleased today to bring to you a couple of pastors from our association that if you don't know them, you need to get to know them. Pastor Wendell Campbell has been at the West Mount Moriah Baptist Church in Como for how long, Wendell?
33 years.
33 years. And you have not been senior pastor that whole time. You started off in a different capacity, right?
That was from 84 to 8. That was from 82 to 87. In 87, when the senior pastor died, I stepped up into that role. Of course, I was not a senior, but I was, if you want to call it that, a senior pastor from that point on.
Mm-hmm. And you've had plenty of time to sink your roots down pretty good in that community.
I was born there.
Yep.
I was born there. Went to school there.
And you've got a whole lot of stories about that area that some folks need to hear, right?
I do. Some that I can tell on this program and some I cannot.
Yeah. And I'm just going to give everyone an open invitation to sit down with Wendell sometime just to hear his stories about Como, about the church, and about what's going on, what the state of life is in that community right now. Pastor Stephen Lowrie is with us as well. Stephen, everybody knows where North Fort Worth Baptist Church is. If anybody has ever driven north out of downtown, headed toward Denton, they've passed your church. Now, the reality is about 80% of those folks could never actually get to your church without, a couple of wrong turns. Are they ever going to finish the highways out by your place?
If you've driven by the church recently, you'll notice they're actually extending the access road, a road that they promised our congregation, I think, since they moved out here in '85. It is in the process of being laid out. So, Lord willing, at some point in 2021, we will have an access road that will loop around to the church so that people won't be nearly as confused as they have been in the past. Very good. Now, how long have you been at North Fort Worth? I just completed my 16th year this past June. It's been a remarkably fast 16 years, but I'm excited about what God is doing, praying for God to continue to give us a freshness in what we're trying to do together. So together, that's nearly a half century of leadership for your two churches. That's significant. I'm at Dr. Campbell. 33 years as pastor is just a wonderful testimony of faithfulness on his part. Over a lunch that we had at one point, we talked about that. I can't even imagine 33 years, and he continues to serve, and so I celebrate his faithfulness.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Yep. Well, Troy, you're going to edit that part right there, so we'll just make that note. Now, you two men have known each other. I'm going to wait until this thing, let me put this on pause. All right, Troy, this is where we'll restart. Now, you two men have known each other for quite a while, at least casually, but in this season of pandemic and protests and everything else that has gone on this year, you've gotten to know each other on a little deeper level. What moved you to deepen that relationship?
Met Pastor Stephen probably in 98, 99, somewhere like that, when you were over at Connell.
It would be the
mid-90s. All right, somewhere along with that. His youth or his missions person, Lyndall Nolan, and I got to be friends, and I went over to Connell, and I was there, and I got a chance to shake his hand several times. And before he left, he went to Dalhart.
That's where I headed.
All right, he headed north. Okay. So I didn't get a chance to meet him after that. I talked to him after that. When he came back to North Fort Worth, we still didn't know. But what really got us, I guess, was refocus through Tarrant Baptist Association and spending the time in Glen Rose. We began to communicate. And I think what really drew us together, Stephen's heart was burdened, if I can say it like that, by the events that took place with George Floyd's murder.
Yes.
And he reached out to me, and we both met, and I shared with him my burden, my heart, concerning all of the tragedies that have happened of late. And he more or less took it up from there to get to know me and to talk to me.
And I was blessed by Wendell's openness to connect during a very troubling time across our nation. I have to even share an aspect of the story, though, Wendell, that I've not even shared with you. When we were meeting for Refocus in January and February, we were starting to get to know each other, and I was encouraged by hearing what God was doing through you and your ministry. And honest to goodness, as we met at Glen Rose, I began to feel in my heart that as we got back, I needed to get with you for lunch. And I just felt like I felt within my mind and heart that that was something I needed to do. But you know how we allow the business of life to kind of drive us rather than really always responding to that prompting within. I just allowed my schedule, having returned back to the office, to kind of move me along, and then COVID hit. And so I honestly think God was trying to, even before some of the challenges that we've encountered across the nation racially, even before that, I think the Lord was trying to move me toward a friendship, a supportive relationship with you that would have been beneficial, even I think in advance of what happened in Minnesota and what has continued to happen across the nation. But in God's kindness, you were willing to allow me to reach out to you in the middle of it all, and I've been blessed and encouraged because of that.
So have I.
So as you guys have gotten to know each other better, what insights have you gained from this developing relationship?
Well, let me say it like this, and I think I can speak to this. We have had well-meaning people to come into our community or our churches and say, "We're with you," after some tragedy. "We're with you, bro. We're standing by you." Well, as soon as the tragedy dies down, they're gone. Dr. Lowrie has proven himself to be faithful. He did not say that I'll be, with you for the upheavals and then I'm gone. He has proven himself to be with us even when the turmoil has dropped a little bit. He's still there and willing to support. And we can open up and talk to each other about the different shoes that we wear. I found out in Glen Rose that people used to rub his hair just like they rubbed mine. And I thought that was very interesting, because the same things that he had gone through, I had gone through. And I'm looking at him and saying, wait a minute, you're not from my side of the street. So we have a common, I think I'd like to suggest we have a common bond there, which I find it to be fascinating. So again, I appreciate him for demonstrating his faithfulness during this season of COVID. And if we can also say turmoil and maybe even anger and so forth. He's been there.
And I appreciate on Wendell's part, certainly with the events that have happened across the nation, that has heightened everyone's concern with regard to race relations and just the struggles that are present in our Black communities. I appreciated his openness to allow me to come alongside when, again, there's a lot working against people of different backgrounds and experiences coming together right now. We're sadly, I think, being pushed to opposite corners when God would want us to find our way to the middle of the room so that we can relate to one another in love and show a world that is utterly confused how Jesus can make a difference. And yet, again, Wendell was open and receptive and responsive. My intention was not to come into a situation as if I had a clue with what was needed or what was required. I just wanted him to know, in the middle of everything that was happening, that he had a brother that was different in color, but not different in heart, that wanted to be a part of and a help in ways that I could maybe be of help. Now, I've been strengthened as we've talked. It's been fascinating over some of our lunches. We've talked about church life and the African-American experience versus the white experience. And there are differences, even how pastors are approached and related to. And I think just it's been helpful to me to appreciate how God is working in all of our communities, though sometimes in distinctively different ways, positive ways. And so I've grown in understanding, I guess is what I'm trying to say, just being able to break bread together. And I'm trusting that's going to continue to be our discovery as we allow God to work in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, based on your experiences together, what would you say to other pastors and church leaders?
Well, if I could say maybe initially, we need to move forward with sincerity.
Yeah.
It isn't about making a show. And I tried to express that early on to Wendell. I'm not wanting to grandstand in the midst of a crisis and to pretend by doing so that I care about what's happening. I want to be a part of a solution. And I think that requires a real sincerity that says, listen, I want to walk with you for the long journey, not for just a brief period of time. And that's what excites me about what I think God is attempting to do with Dr. Campbell and I. We're just walking together. Mm-hmm. We're not on a sprint. We're not trying to do something in a way that, again, is quickly dispensed with. But right. Lord willing, we're just walking together, and I'm excited about how my life will be strengthened because of Wendell and his congregation, and I just think there's going to be some meaningful things that come from it. But it does take that initial step, that initial phone call. But I would stress again, this needs to be a sincere act, not just kind of a popular, trendy kind of thing to do. I hope God moves us to meaningful relationships.
Mm-hmm. There was an old proverb or an old statement. I don't know. I hope I can say it right without getting in trouble. You have to walk a mile in someone else's shoes to understand them, because everything that might be visually clear to you from your level of understanding, it might not be the same to somebody else. And I thank Stephen for really understanding that. He did not come in, he and his church did not come in. I mean, we met in the fellowship center. We did our social distancing as far as that goes. Thank you, Tarrant Baptist. You all brought us lunch from Jason's. But we had a wonderful dialogue. And I think some things had to be said so that they could actually hear, the members of North Fort Worth Baptist Church could actually hear our heart and how Christ-centered we are, but at the same time, there was a burden on us, okay? And we had to, try to express that in a loving way, in a Christian way, but we did want people to understand that this is real. He came back out in his own people mover, his huge van, and we rode around the community, and he prayed. Members of his church prayed over certain areas, but I wanted them to see the community as it was, where our church is located. We are located around abandoned buildings. We have abandoned buildings on both sides. There's an abandoned building behind us. There's an abandoned building, houses in front of us. So this is the area that we live in, and it's really impossible. That wasn't always like that, but it's like that now. So he saw it, and I really appreciate him coming through and allowing his members to see what was going on. I hope we all had meaningful dialogue after that. We really did. It was very. I thought it was a very sincere God moment. Really, I did.
Yeah, I was grateful for Wendell bringing some of his members together over a lunch to share with our ministry team as well as some of our key leaders. And I appreciated the honesty of what was shared. I think if we're going to find solutions, we need to allow for hurt to be expressed. We need to seek an understanding that isn't defensive in posture. I think the path forward is one where God helps us to sit across from one another and to listen and to feel pain and to from our knees in prayer find a path that helps us look for real solutions. And so we were, I think, as a gathering, those from my church that were able to be a part of that meeting, that was a very instrumental meeting for us. And to this day, I think we're still moved by the testimonies, not simply of Dr. Campbell, but of some of his key leaders. One of his deacons shared at length in a way that was deeply stirring and convicting. And so going back to your earlier question, David, what's required? I think there needs to be an openness that allows for some real emotion and hurt to be voiced, where we're not just trying to put on a pretty picture that everything is happy here. No, there's brokenness and there's hurt, and we want to work together with God's grace to do something that addresses that.
Very good. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your leadership example. I know a lot of folks are going to want to talk to you about this, about what you've done and how they can do things like that as well. I look forward to continuing those conversations, whether it's in the news or not. It's time that we stop making incremental progress, and we have a societal shift where racism really is a thing of our past, and it's not going to happen unless we get to know each other at a heart level like you two have. So thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to working with you as we go forward and building these kinds of experiences for lots of other folks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.